The plug is back, oh yes siree. It's the 2600 from Atari.
So here we are going into virtual space, and here I want to show you a little application where we've got a car engine.
Physicists believe that when time began, at the moment of the Big Bang, matter and antimatter were created in equal amounts. And based on recent measurements made at CERN Laboratory in Switzerland, it seems there is perfect symmetry between the two, which they say implies that our universe should not exist.
The fundamental premise is that there's a mysterious, super advanced civilization that runs computer programs to simulate all sorts of phenomena, including reality itself.
Either we're going to create simulations that are indistinguishable from reality, or civilization will cease to exist.
Our reality isn't a reality at all, but actually we're in some sort of extremely advanced simulation. Your consciousness is software.
Some people think, in fact, the whole universe is a computer of some sort.
Chuck, I've been public on the fact that I'm waiting for someone to convince me that we don't live in a simulation.
We're almost certainly living in a simulated reality.
Global pandemic, murder hornets, Pentagon confirmed UFOs. What do all of these have in common? Well, they happened in the year 2020, and many believe this was because we are living in the Matrix, or simulation rather. May seem a little bit insane, but the more you read and think about it, the more it seems like a possibility. We mean, for God's sake, Elon Musk said there is a 50% chance, so that's gotta mean something, right?
If you assume any rate of improvement at all, then the games will become indistinguishable from reality.
We hate to do this to you, but before we get into this video, can you like, comment, and subscribe? Helps us out so much. Alright, now that we're past that, let's get on to this conspiracy. Okay, so before we bore you with all the science and the logistics behind this, we want to take a look back at some of the most bizarre things that actually happened in the year 2020. Of course, we had the COVID-19 global pandemic. There was the Australian bushfires that just seemed to never end. Kanye West ran for president of the United States, and Prince Harry and Meghan Markle decided they were stepping down as senior royals and moved to the United States of America. For the first time in history, we believe, a star in the sky actually just vanished completely. This suggests it was swallowed into a black hole, which is just a not pleasant thought. The Czech Republic was invaded by Poland accidentally. When was the last time that happened? Next to this was the false start of World War III, and people were just memeing it. We thought Kim Jong-un was dead, and Ben Shapiro sang the lyrics to WAP.
He already made his mind up before he came. Now get your boots and your coat for this wet-ass P-word.
Oh, half the world also binge-watched Tiger King simultaneously, while the other half burned down cities in riots and protests. Kobe Bryant passed away in a horrific helicopter crash, and people thought that they had it worse just because they had to wear a mask to go buy milk and eggs. We wish we could say this was half of it, but this wasn't even close to 1% of it. Either way, you get the picture, as you were probably there. So the idea here is that we are all not real and living in some kind of computer simulated virtual reality. The first question that comes to mind is, who is controlling this? And if this is really all just imitation, it's all over once somebody figures out how to get into creative mode. Either way, this opens up multiple doors here. Aliens, time travel, paranormal activity, and so forth, and so forth. Anything that isn't plausible is now possible. One of the earliest renditions of this theory was actually started all the way back in 2003 by Nick Bostrom of the University of Oxford. Bostrom is credited with writing an article that sparked a revolution.
And the simulation argument, which I came up with.
The simulation argument took on its own life from here on out through the creative minds of philosophers, physicists, my neighbor Craig, scientists, and techies, and has even become a popular niche in pop culture and the media.
Well, what's this? What could this possibly be? Because it looks like you're inside a simulation inside a simulation.
Many have come to the conclusion that the chances of us being real thinking individuals in our own tangible reality is relatively almost close to being exactly even with the chances of us being in a simulated virtual reality. So what was Bostrom exactly stating in this article? His argument simply translates to existential questions and risks. He's wrote about the creation of superintelligence, representing a possible means to the extinction of mankind, human-level general intellectual machines, and of course, the simulation theories. He writes on how the current existence and experiences we face as humans are artificial. He demonstrated in his work how at least one of these three possibilities is in fact true. The first is that all human-like civilizations in the universe go extinct before they develop the technological capacity to create simulated realities. The second is that if any civilizations do reach this phase of technological maturity, none of them will bother to run simulations. And finally, the third is how advanced civilizations would have the ability to create many simulations, and that means there are far more simulated worlds than non-simulated ones. Interesting enough, while this may seem absurd, it does make a lot of sense. Perhaps the greatest adaptation of this theory and phenomenon can actually be found and viewed in the movie The Matrix. See, the film was about a simulated reality that was actually created by machines in the future. We are living in a video game virtual reality, you could view it as. The movie had Keanu Reeves, therefore this is a classic and helps support this theory. The whole simulation craze really started to pick up again in 2016, when the CEO of Tesla Motors and entrepreneur made an alarming statement.
The odds that we're in base reality is 1 in billions.
Say what you will about Elon Musk, but he's a decently intelligent figure in the limelight. Next comes David Kipping to run his own numbers. The Columbia University astronomer started with Bayesian analysis. Now this simply lets the calculator include assumptions as a way to assist in the modeling. Kipping ultimately categorized Bostrom's first two statements into one, as the conclusion for both is that there is no simulation. The third got a bit more confusing. The final result Kipping was able to conclude is that the simulations cannot spawn their own additional simulations. This is true, for when you break it down in a much simpler way, a simulation we would create as people would have to fit the criteria of its platform. For instance, if you want to install an app on your iPhone, you have to have the storage space. An app would have to leave space for the rest of your iPhone to run properly. You see, one of the largest concerns that we see, at least here with this theory, would be how strong is this operating system that is simulating all this for us? And what exactly is being simulated? You have to think this operating system would have to simulate the birds, the trees, the sand, the earth, the dirt, you name it. Or is it only simulating what you see, and when you turn a corner, is everybody else just gone? Are you the only one in the void? Or are we all being gifted with these thoughts? This is where we mentioned time travel as well. If this had the possibility to be a simulation and everything we see is essentially a vast computer video game simulation, if the system is so strong, why can't we just rewind and fast forward at ease? In an interview with popular podcaster Joe Rogan, Elon Musk stated,
If you assume any rate of improvement at all, then games will be indistinguishable from reality. Or civilization will end. One of those two things will occur. Therefore, we are most likely in a simulation. I think most likely, this is just about probability. There are many simulations. These simulations are, you might as well call them reality, or you could call them multiverse.
The whole thing could be made sense of. Remember games like Pong? Well, that was revolutionary for its time. Next would become Pac-Man, then Super Mario, and then finally what many thought was peak, Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3's online gaming. The graphics, the stories, and just what this new technology showed helped demonstrate the improvement of technology and AI experience. Today, we have VR simulators and the most lifelike looking gaming technology we've ever seen. This is all over the span of, 30, maybe 40 years tops? Now imagine what 100 years things can be like. Now imagine 500 years, or like Elon Musk said, what would happen in 10,000 years? The possibilities are endless.
So does this conspiracy have any merit?
Listen, I love my conspiracies. I mean, I got a goddamn UFO tattoo on my arm. When I'm looking at this, I feel like we're not, because I just can't imagine this actually being true. But at the same time, there's not really an argument to prove that we aren't in a simulation.
See, for me, I kind of feel like I hope we are in a simulation because then I would guess you have respawn.
Would you get respawn or extra lives?
That's a very good question. Leave it to Elon Musk to ask those questions.
I love it.